In a little-known corner of Central Asia on the edge between a desert and the delta of a great river, countless remnants of massive fortresses still stretch across the horizon. These ancient structures are what remain of a world that was once full of life. Today, everything is dry, open, and silent. But for many centuries, the region of Khwarezm was a vast artificial oasis, sustained by canals, irrigated agriculture, and a culture that had to learn how to survive between two extremes: the unpredictable fertility of the river and the constant threat of the desert. This region, where modern-day Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan now lie, had been continuously inhabited for around 2,400 years. Until, in the year 1218, because of an insult, the region was completely devastated. And the result of this immense destruction can still be seen today. Little by little, massive fortresses and settlements being swallowed by the desert sands. But before understanding why there are so many fortified ruins in this place and what insult led to its destruction, we need to understand what life was like at that time. Khwarezm was a true man-made oasis, a mosaic of fields and settlements that only existed because water was diverted from the Amu Darya River through canals. Archaeology shows that this engineering was essential for the region. As early as the beginning of the 6th century BC, large canals stretching up to 15 kilometers were built, irrigating hundreds of square kilometers right in the middle of the desert. From that moment on, settlements and small organized cities began to emerge. The minting of their own currency also began. Architecture started to adopt a more advanced style, and many cities and temples were designed and built. This economic and social leap was so remarkable that researchers describe this oasis as a kind of Egypt of Central Asia, precisely because of its irrigation systems and hydraulic planning that transformed arid plains into fertile fields. Hundreds of thousands of people lived and worked in these lands, leading to rapid development. Residents began building their homes as small walled complexes. The inner courtyard of each complex was where everything happened: grain cleaning, sewing clothes, and preparing food. Children played and ran there, and it was where daily matters were handled. Inside the houses, there were clay benches along the walls used for sitting and sleeping, designated spaces for storing belongings, and a fire area that was the heart of the home, used for cooking, heating, and drying. Instead of furniture, the interior revolved around fixed clay structures and simple items, such as containers, baskets, fabrics, and tools. Families were structured under a patriarchal system. The patriarch usually led the family for about 3 generations, with large families living within the same complex. Evidence also suggests that many of these places had foreign slaves, who lived and worked alongside the families. Food came from the fields, where wheat and barley were grown, as well as orchards of apricots, peaches, and plums, along with seasonal plants like melons. As a result, the basic diet consisted mainly of bread, along with fresh fruit in the summer and dried fruit in the winter. Preparation was simple, involving a lot of grinding, drying, and storage work. Each complex had its own storage area, all protected from heat and wind. In addition, there were cotton plantations used to produce clothing, towels, and carpets. Some specialized in crafting ceramic items, especially containers for storing water and food. Others encouraged you to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and comment on whether you could live this kind of life, working in the fields, living under a patriarch, and raising domestic animals. Sheep and goats were the main source of protein for survival in the region. From them came meat, milk, and wool, and they were easily movable, functioning as a kind of living food reserve. Oxen were also raised, but in smaller numbers and mainly used for labor, such as plowing fields and transporting materials in carts. Horses were used for movement between fortresses and cities. As for the camel, the king of the desert, it was a multifunctional animal used for transporting goods and as a mount in caravans traveling long distances across the desert. During periods of drought, it met labor demands where oxen could not. After all, water, although abundant and essential, was never synonymous with stability. The Amu Darya River changed over time. Canals dried up, branches of the river shifted, and entire areas lost the source that sustained them. That is why the local history is marked by cycles of expansion and contraction, with irrigation crises repeatedly recorded in archaeological evidence. In some periods, the system expanded and sustained cities. In others, parts of it collapsed, and the human landscape had to retreat and reorganize. But overall, this vast oasis was prosperous, and its people learned to adapt to constantly changing circumstances. With such a productive and centralized location, Khwarezm quickly became one of the main trade hubs in Asia, where goods were imported and exported in large quantities. There were also small bazaars and marketplaces within cities or located at crossroads of trade routes. In this way, people had access to a wide variety of foreign goods and could sell their own production. Now that we understand what life was like at that time, we come to the question that interests us most. Why were so many fortresses built? As we have seen, water was the pillar of survival for these people, so protecting water meant protecting life itself. The canals were not just infrastructure, they were the livelihood of the population. And around this extremely valuable resource, dozens of fortresses were built. Mud structures with thick walls, defensive corridors, towers, and fortified gates. Some were small fortified cities with walls reaching up to 8 meters in height. They were connected to each other, forming an extensive defensive corridor. This way, anyone attempting to enter the region could be easily spotted. Nothing went unnoticed under the watchful eyes of the towers. While the general population lived relatively peacefully in the fields, life inside these fortresses was different. In a time when sudden attacks and invasions could come from any direction, maintaining constant vigilance and military structure was what determined a people's ability to defend and endure. The entire state and military system was sustained through tributes paid by families in the form of food and other goods, as well as the provision of family members for military service, especially slaves. Thus, a network of fortresses was created, where in case of attack, families from the fields could quickly seek refuge. Although many residential complexes were themselves built like small fortresses, precisely because of their vulnerability in open areas. But all this defensive structure was not enough against highly motivated and insulted enemies. During the expansion of the Mongol Empire, Genghis Khan sent a caravan of merchants to Khwarezm, proposing to open a trade bridge between the empires. One of the governors saw this as an act of espionage and ordered all the merchants to be killed. Upon learning of this, Genghis Khan sent official envoys to seek a diplomatic resolution, demanding the surrender of the governor responsible for the massacre. However, the king of Khwarezm killed at least one of the envoys and humiliated the others by shaving their beards, an act considered an extreme insult at the time. This combination of events led the Mongol Empire to sweep the Khwarezmian Empire off the map, destroying its cities and fortresses. From that moment on, the region went through numerous invasions and changes in control until it eventually became what is now Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan. But its people never stopped using the waters of the Amu Darya River for irrigation. Today, the region is highly developed in agriculture, which remains the main way of life. When we look at these ruins, what is most striking is not just the sight of walls crumbling day after day, but what they reveal about a civilization that once lived through a time of prosperity in a place where it seemed life could not exist. Through planning and effort, an urban and agricultural structure was created in the middle of a true oasis carved into the desert. But it also leaves us with a reminder: even a great empire can fall due to distrust, lack of communication, and a single reckless decision.